the moment. I've got a little fella on my lap at the moment, little Sandy. He's coming and giving me some love at the moment, aren't you, darling? Hey, there he is, just for everybody to look in. And he's a good boy, aren't you? You're a good lad. Right, let's have a quick look at the weather then. As you can see today, it is rather cloudy. Amanda said in a concise weather forecast, good morning, Ginge. Tuesday's weather, cloudy and showers with some thunderstorms in places. Temperatures 19 degrees, but it's going to feel like 19 degrees. Have a nice day. So will do. The reason for the early morning broadcast this morning is because Jane and I were off into town this morning. I'm going for a scan, to check that I'm okay. Jane's going for teeth to be done, and basically so trying to do it all before we go in, unlike yesterday when we did what we had to do on the way back. Anyway, big shout out to Barbara Telfer and Shane Bowen. I think you're up early this morning because you're probably off out beating, are you, sir? Out there making sure the pheasants are not misbehaving before your boys get out there with the shotguns. But anyway, great to have you looking in. Whoop whoop, he says. Anyway, right, let's have a look at the infection rates for the last 24 hours here in Greece. I'm going to tell you now, the infection rates have gone up, and as we did say yesterday, it was a weekend, and so the numbers have now gone up. Oh, his little fella loves me. There you go. Sit yourself down there, darling. There you go. Right, so at the moment then, the infection rate today is 6,950 new infections. That's up on the day yesterday where it was 3,869. That brings the total run of infections at the moment since the pandemic started to 838,824, of which 50% are male. There were 15 new cases detected at entry into the country. That was up on the day before where there were 12. Anyway, according to the national stats then, the islands of interest that we're looking at, Lefkada, they saw a slight decline in infections yesterday. The day before I did report on 14. They had 8 new infections and they are in the green. Corfu, they've seen a rise. They had 92 new infections on my last report, and they had 99 new infections yesterday, and they are still in the red. As for Prefecture of Kefalonia, they had 2 new infections the day before. They had 10 new infections reported in the last 24 hours, and they are still in amber. And as for us, Zakynthos, I'm afraid we've seen a rise as well of 18 was the last report, and today I can say that there has been 25 new infections here on the island within the last 24 hours. Now, when it comes to deaths at the moment, deaths actually have dropped slightly on yesterday. There were 72 new deaths across the country. That is down on yesterday on my last report where it was 80, and that was the highest death rate since May the 6th. So the death numbers have gone down ever so slightly. And once again, our condolences to those families that are affected. That brings the death toll since the pandemic started to 16,838, of which 95% of those people had underlying health conditions or were over the age of 70. Now, when it comes to the ICUs at the moment and people that are in incubation, at the moment, critical cases, they are on the rise again. Last time I reported 536. Now I can report it's 551. Critical cases at the moment in the hospitals are 338 male and 213 female. So that's quite an increase in female patients. And the average age of those people is about 64 years of age. And 84% of those have underlying health conditions or over the age of 70. Now, regarding vaccination of those critical patients, 460 are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated, where 91 are fully vaccinated. Right, today's news then. The Greek government's Infectious Diseases Committee met yesterday to discuss the worsening situation, especially in the north of the country, and their focus will be on whether further restrictions are necessary for unvaccinated, and if the booster jab should be mandatory for people over the age of 65. Now, the Health Ministry will start today procedures now for recruiting doctors in the private sector. The government spokesman yesterday, Giannis Aramoku, during a briefing of the political advisors, said that they were now going to look at the procedures now for bringing in private sector doctors to help bolster the Greek NHS. Anyway, Mr. Emoku, another minister, said the Ministry of Health has given incentives to private doctors in order to temporarily strengthen the health system. Tonight, we expect the final results of this move, the answers from the Medical Association in this direction. Depending on the gaps that exist, the Ministry of Health is ready, and from tomorrow, that's today, start according the provisions and procedures for ordering services and private doctors for strengthening the NSS. Anyway, now coming to the island of Zakynthos, again a little bit heavy on the COVID situation at the moment. The outbreak of the pandemic on Zakynthos is further confirmed once again by the measurements made in the urban wastewater. Results of the sampling that took place 10 days ago are now in, and they found large concentrations of the virus per litre at 7,400 copies of the viral RNA. Now, this was found, and they say which have increased compared to last September, but at the same level as in early July. So they've seen an increase. However, the increase is the same as in July, but it is more than what it has been. So in this case then, the monitoring of the urban wastewater is another way that the authorities can see the spread of the virus. They basically take samples from sewage farms, etc., as to what the situation is in people's waste. Anyway, it seems that the pandemic, along with dozens of cases recorded in our daily island since mainly the beginning of November. That was when the viral loads has been seen to be increasing here on Zakynthos. So anyway, it still means that we're staying in the red at the moment. Interestingly, yesterday, public health sector workers were protesting in Athens, and they were protesting about conditions in the hospitals as they struggled with a new surge in COVID cases, and the authorities considered further restrictions. Now, these protests were to do with unpaid and overworked and understaffed staff. They called for more hirings from the government to include them on a list of hazardous professions which receive hazard pay benefits, and for private doctors to be ordered to help. Now, a decision by the government to suspend unvaccinated health sector workers has increased staff shortages, they said. Greece made vaccinations mandatory for nursing home staff in July and for healthcare workers in September. Anyway, hospitals, particularly in the northern Greece, are scrambling to treat patients as cases hit new record highs this month. A month with more than 6,000 daily, and wards are starting to run out of space. Now, the president of the Public Hospital Workers Federation, Michalis Godanis, said stretchers at the hospitals on duty are increasing by the dozens, and patients are being chosen for intensive care units by priority based on their age. Anyway, patients' lives are in danger, and staff have remained. The staff that have remained are like elastic bands stretched from clinic to clinic and from ward to ward. Last week, the authorities announced new measures which will require the unvaccinated to provide negative tests to enter cafes and restaurants, state services and banks. Public and private sector employees also now need to take tests twice a week to enter their workplace. The government is trying to avoid another lockdown down, but with only about 60% of the population of 11 million vaccinated, it is considering further restrictions, including possibly more mandatory vaccinations and testing. Anyway, government spokesman Yanis Oromogou said on Monday, only 1 in 10 now being treated in intensive care units for COVID is fully vaccinated. 11 private clinics have volunteered to provide space for COVID patients, he said, adding that the government has asked private doctors to offer their services and could order them to do so if necessary. So it looks like already that's an overlap of two stories there. They are going to go ahead and order in the north of the country the private sector to assist with shoring up the health service there. No mention whether that's happened here on Zakynthos at the moment. To be honest, no mention about how many patients there are in the hospital at the moment in COVID, in the COVID clinic or in the ICU. And at the moment, it's unknown as to how much of a pressure that the hospital here is under in comparison to other parts of the country. However, when you consider just how high the statistics are for infections here on Zakynthos, you still have to ask the question, where are these people? I'm personally not sort of coming into contact with anybody that's knowing somebody that's gone down with COVID, even though the numbers are high. You might remember when I was doing the podcast last year and earlier this year, there would always be what the state is saying and what the local media would be saying about people that had been reported suffering with COVID. We're not seeing that now. All we're hearing is the government statistics. We're not hearing what is happening within the hospital here on the island as to how many people are being admitted, etc. We get the deaths when they come out, but not the admissions. So again, we'll keep our ears to the ground and eyes to the ground. Maybe the local media will start to chase those things up. Anyway, also another story from Zakynthos. It seems that Zakynthos police arrested 2 youths on Saturday morning. The police arrested them. They were caught breaking into a store in Zakynthos. They'd obviously broken into another store where they had been breaking into slot machines, and they had stolen 51 euros in worth of coins. They then were caught breaking into a jewellery store where they had then stolen 370 euros worth of jewellery. Anyway, the investigation by the security department of the Zakynthos police meant that they were arrested. They were found, and their parents are also, this is another interesting thing about Greek law, their parents were also arrested as well, because the parents were arrested on the grounds of neglecting and supervision of their children. So once one thing, unlike the UK, where youths get involved in crime, not only do they get caught and arrested, if they're caught and arrested, that is, but also their parents are brought to book as well. So that's just a little idiosyncrasy with Greek law that might interest a few people. Anyway, those people, the youths and the parents, were then taken before the public prosecutor, and they were taken before him and his office. So we'll wait and see what the outcome is of the trial that will ensue. Anyway, and another interesting little bit of news. A 45-year-old inmate who escaped last week from a Corinth prison through the main entry was recaptured early on Monday morning in an Athens suburb. Anyway, the man, who was serving 45 years and 8 months in prison for a slew of crimes, which also included shooting a police officer, was able to sneak out of the jail on November the 11th when the guard left his post, according to media reports. He simply pushed the button opening the front door and walked out. Anyway, the same report said that 8 days ago, the Corinth prison director had sent an urgent letter to the General Secretary for Anti-Crime Policy, Sophia Nicolou, requesting an increased number of penitentiary staff to ensure security. Anyway, the Athens Security Division is conducting a preliminary investigation into the incident. You may remember a few years ago, mega prison break from Coriolanus jail using a helicopter, where basically a helicopter just landed in the yard man of interest jumped on board and then flew away. So again, the prisons in Greece obviously in dire need of a bit of investment and a few more staff as well to keep them inside rather than outside. But anyway, an interesting story nonetheless. Right, let's have a quick look who's tuning in this morning. Lynn Darby, nice to see you in. Yanni Terasbali, who's looking in. Sakis Parabolis, who's also tuning in as well. Thank you. It's nice to see some Greek people tuning in as well. I'm not sure where Yanni Taskos is, but anyway, thank you for tuning in. Lynn Darby is tuning in. Jonathan Ellis is tuning in as well. Rap Reg buddy. I hope you're doing well, sir. Also, Denise Williams, another Rap Reg buddy. Simon Grinley tuning in over there in Wendover in Aylesbury. Also, Sid James up there in the north, up in County Durham, if I remember rightly. Nice to see you, Sid, looking in. Also, big Northern Soul fan. Jürgen Jervis is also looking in as well. I'm not sure where Jürgen is from. I'm not sure if he's Austria or Germany, maybe. Also, Shane up there on Exmoor. And Shane says, Gallimera, Ginge, whoop, whoop, whoop. Anyway, Gallimera to you, sir. Right, that's it from me for today. Just got to quickly answer a question that was raised by Mike Gattenby about further testing of vaccinated people. Yes, I understand that vaccinated people are being tested when they're having to go into the hospital, etc., because he did say that people are vaccinated are still testing. He is still testing even though he's vaccinated, and good on you, mate. That's all I can say. Good on you. I understand there are certain places that before you're allowed entry they will insist on a PCR test, obviously hospitals, doctors, surgeries, etc. Just curious to see when we go for our medical appointments this morning whether we'll have to present some form of PCR test or whether our certificates that we have will be good enough. We'll find out this morning. But on the whole, unvaccinated people are being tested twice a week, especially if they're working and if they want to be allowed to go into bars and restaurants, etc. Oh, and that's another thing, just to remind you, that bars and restaurants today in Zakynthos should be closed as they are demonstrating today to say that their sector is very badly hit, but getting no financial assistance from the government while they're having to impose lockdowns and stop people who are unvaccinated coming into their premises and obviously doing checks and obviously under threat of being booked by the police and paying very high consequences if they are not showing due diligence with people coming in. So we'll see how that does affect today. Jane and I will be in town, so it means I don't think we'll be going for coffee after our medical appointments, but we shall wait and see. There'll probably be somebody who'll be open, as we know there always is somebody, or it might be they might just do stand-up coffees and not allow you to sit down, but we shall wait and see. But anyway, just going back to the point I was raising, yes, there are still testing going on for both vaccinated and unvaccinated. Some people are still doing it just out of curiosity or because they just want to feel extra safe. But in general, unvaccinated people are being hit hard with testing, more so than vaccinated, where I've got to be honest, being vaccinated was being looked upon as you've earned a privilege that you don't need to test, where the unvaccinated, you need to test because you're not doing what we want by having the vaccine. So I'm going to leave that argument there. If you want to put any comments on that, put them down in the bottom. Just a quick let you know, the weekend's Northern Soul show, Remembrance Soul, that should be going up online at some point today. Thank you to all those people that tuned in over the last couple of days. It was aired on Beatz-Radio.co.uk. Thank you for that. Also, big shout out to Graham from Beatz-Radio.co.uk, who's also tuned in at the moment. And I will see you later. You take care. Have a great day. And I'll keep my ear to the ground. Ta-ra.